Journey is a place where you come if you're interested in making games and you find someone and then you make games. That's it.
The Great Journey is a community.
The community.
A community.
We've got people who's been here for many years, and we've had people like joining the last couple of weeks, and everybody's equally important because the people is what makes the gaming community.
The Great Journey is a forum where people can meet and to explore an ecosystem of game development, to find like-minded people and create games.
Hanging out at the Great Journey is always kind of an unexpected experience because there's no one scheduled to be there at any time, so you don't really know who you're going to meet there or you don't know what you're going to learn. So there's a lot of creativity and you can just be yourself.
This is a place where I can meet people that are exactly as nerdy as I am, and a place where I can sit and make games.
Doesn't matter who you are or what you come from, as long as you have a vision of creating something good with some people, you can do it.
It's opened its arms, it's welcomed me into its cult.
To make new connections, meaningful connections, develop my skills and help other people develop their own skills.
This has given me the opportunity to develop, but also to learn about others' focus on their specific area of interest.
Some people are making music, some people are writing stories.
Programmers, artists. It's a place where I can share my knowledge and get knowledge in return, and together we can grow to become the best game developers that we can.
And everybody wants to improve, and everyone is willing to help. I think that's what unites the Great Journey.
The core really is collaborating, meeting up with new people to create something new.
Just our thirst for knowledge and our passion for video games brings us all together.
If you're interested in learning or developing as a game creator, the Great Journey is always welcome for you to come by and have fun.
And we are live. Great. So welcome everyone to Lunch Talk. It is a bi-weekly event here by us at the Great Journey, where we invite people from the gaming industry to share their experience and knowledge with us. So my name is Rosanna and I am the communication manager here at the Great Journey. And I'm going to be your host today. So before we jump into the Lunch Talk, I want to just talk a little bit about our upcoming events. So if you're interested in any of the events we have, you can find some links in the descriptions below. The first one I want to talk about is our summer pitch event called the Great Summer Pitch, where you can pitch your game idea and win funding to start up your studio and starting your journey to release your game. We also have two programs. We actually have three, but one have already closed for applications, but two still open, and those are Indie Game Developer, where you learn all the basics to become, for example, your own indie game developer, so you can just continue to start making game. The other one is something we call Fast Track, which is if you already have an idea, you already have a team, but you want to, you don't have funding, for example, to develop your game. Fast Track is a program where you can get full funding for 9 months to develop your game and release it. So just check it out. We have everything down there. And the last one is that tomorrow we have another event called Friday Stories, and that is a 1 to 2 hour event where we invite people also from the gaming industry to share their knowledge with us. And tomorrow we have Kajsa Larsson from Sharkmob, who's going to share her knowledge about working with sound design and composing for video games. But that is all about the events that are coming. Now we are going on to this Lunch Talk, and this Lunch Talk we welcome Bobbi Augustine Sand, game designer at Transcender Media, who's going to share their experience working with Kickstarter and working with as a tool for releasing their game Knife Sisters. So welcome, Bobbi. We are so glad to have you.
Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, I'm Bobbi, and this talk will be about the Kickstarter campaign we did for Knife Sisters about 2.5 years ago. And I'm going to talk about what we did, how we did it, and why, and what we learned from doing what we did. And my background is within games. I worked with games for since 2006 when I started Osma Games together with Karin Ryding. We explored what games are and could be, and we did both own projects and we also did some gamification projects. And we worked a lot with creativity and what makes people playful. But parallel to that, I've been very interested in storytelling, and I have written 4 fiction novels, mainly aimed at young adults. And they are about themes such as sexuality, identity, growing up. And when I started Transcenders Media, when I started working more with the games in that company, I wanted to make a game that had those kinds of themes, because Osma, the games we did with Osma didn't have that. They weren't story focused. So that's why I started making Knife Sisters. And Knife Sisters, I'd say it's a wholesome queer game. I will come to that later. But it's a visual novel, and I chose the format of visual novel because, as I said, I wanted to be able to work with a heavy story. I also wanted the game to be based upon the player's choices. So visual novel was a perfect fit for that. And we can watch the trailer for Knife Sisters now. So, Knife Sisters is a game about love, peer pressure, relationships, and exploring sexual situations. And the intentions with the game was to be about power relationships, both good and bad ones. It is about a character, Leo, who's kind of inexperienced when it comes to romantic emotions. They have never been in love. And they also have a bit of a hard time understanding themselves and others, but they're still curious about love, relationships, and sex. So I wanted the player to be able to explore that just the way as Leo did. And how can this kind of game be wholesome? Well, it's all about consent. In the game, you can explore sexual scenes, but it's up to the player to choose how to do it and how far to go in that kind of exploration. And as Kate Gray wrote in her piece about Knife Sisters in Kotaku, she wrote that Knife Sisters explores the tricky subject of player-character consent, and what does it mean for a game to let you consent? And that's what I wanted to explore with Knife Sisters, using BDSM as one way of doing that. So the player can try to explore that with the characters in the game. They can also say no to the things they could do there if they want to. But now back to Kickstarter. We started working on Knife Sisters in 2017. We had gotten some seed funding from Kulturbryggan. I had applied for funding from them and gotten money for about a year's worth of work. So I had kind of a good foundation to stand on. And we had developed a demo that we showcased in September 2017 at the Erotikafton in Malmö. That's an event with around 500 people exploring different kinds of media, books, music, performances about erotic subjects. And this was like the perfect place to test the demo for our game, with an audience that were interested in those kinds of subjects, but maybe, and we were the only game there, so we got a lot of attention. So we got to test the game there. We also showed the game at Amaze Open Screens in April 2018. And in the autumn of 2018, we went to QGCon in Montreal, that's the Queerness and Games Conference, and also to Indicate in Los Angeles. And I gave talks at both those conferences, and I also showcased the game. And when we showcased the Knife Sisters at Indicate, there came someone from Kickstarter. And they looked at the game and said that they thought that maybe this game could be successful on Kickstarter because they saw, they looked at it and thought that this might actually work on Kickstarter. And I had been thinking about doing a Kickstarter campaign before, but I had dismissed it sort of because I thought it would take too much time to work on that campaign for the amount of money that we could get from it. But hearing someone else saying that they thought that it might work, it like made me start to think that maybe we should actually do it. And back at our Airbnb, where we were staying, me and Pixie, who's also part of the team, we had to start thinking and deciding whether we should actually do this or not. Because doing a Kickstarter campaign is a lot of work. And we only had a few months left until release. Like this was in October. And at that point, we were planning on releasing the game in March. So it was like half a year left. And we also had to do a beta test, and we had to like finish the game. And then it's very hard to think about something like a Kickstarter campaign. And if we would do it, then we would have to, because this was in October, it would have to be done before the beta test. It would have to be done before Christmas. So that would leave us with just 2 weeks to plan the campaign, if we would do it. I had been part of 2 Kickstarter campaigns before. One in 2012, when I was part of the Granny's Dancing on the Table team doing that Kickstarter feature film. And I'd also done one in 2014 for Words of Oz, which was an Ozma game that we were working on. And both those campaigns had actually succeeded, but it had taken so much work and effort to get them to succeed. So I knew that it would take a lot of time and effort if we were to do a Kickstarter for Knife Sisters. And apart from that, Kickstarter had also changed a lot since those 2 projects. Because in 2012, Kickstarter was kind of a new platform, and crowdfunding, there was a lot of buzz around it, and people were interested in supporting projects through crowdfunding, just because for the good of it, and so you could succeed with the project just from being very like enthusiastic and yeah. But in 2018, when we were thinking about doing it, a lot of things had changed. Kickstarter had become a lot more professional. People were using it more as a pre-sale platform, and people were really expecting to get something from the campaign, not just supporting because they wanted to. So I knew that was a big difference from the other campaigns that we had done before. And you can see that for Granny's Dancing on the Table, we asked for a lot of money. It was $50,000, and it became 54. For Words of Oz, we asked for 120,000 Swedish krona, and we got 126,000. And it was just in the last hours that they succeeded. So now we had to do a really quick calculation if we wanted to do this campaign or not. We had to weigh the work involved against the potential benefits of doing a campaign. But our seed funding was spent, so we didn't really have any money for marketing, and we didn't even have enough money to do everything we had planned for the game initially. So getting some extra funds would be really great for us. And we also knew that if we would do the campaign, it would be a good marketing for the game, because when you do a Kickstarter campaign, you talk about the game constantly for 30 days. And that's something that's very hard to prioritize otherwise, because when you're working and trying to finish the game, you naturally prioritize the production. So we also knew it could be a good thing for spreading the word of the game. All these things considered made us decide to actually do the Kickstarter. And we decided to do it from the 30th of October to the 29th of November in 2018. So when you do a Kickstarter campaign, you have to find a suitable framing for it. You have to ask for something that seems plausible. When people read what you ask for a sum of money, and you say, for this money, we will do this. And that needs to sound appropriate for them when they read through the campaign. So that was the first thing we had to find. What should we ask for? For what should we ask for money? And when thinking about it, we actually found one thing that we had considered cutting from the game, because we didn't really have the resources to do it. And that was a tarot deck that is part of the game. In one scene in the game, the main character Leo goes to an occult fair, and that's in the city where they live. And this city is a bit like a combination of Malmö and Montreal. And there is a small shop, and they know the shop owner. And at one point, this shop owner makes this occult fair. And you can do a tarot reading there. You don't have to do it, but you can do it for Leo. And the cards in that scene at this point in time, they were just rough sketches. And we didn't really have time and resources to do all the illustrations for the tarot. But this was something I thought could be a good thing to try to fund through the Kickstarter, because it's easy to understand, and it's also very picturesque. It looks good when you present it, and we could also use it as a reward for the backers. So we decided to do the tarot deck as a main thing that we wanted to fund, but we also asked for money for the proofreading of the script, because we didn't have money to do that either. And as you can think, when you write in English and English is not your first language, it's a bit you're not sure that you have written everything right. So we also decided to ask for that. In the end, we asked for 5,600 euro, 55,000 Swedish kronor, to do this. And yeah, how did we come to that sum? We knew that it was a big difference between different kinds of projects on Kickstarter, how much money you could ask for and what was reasonable. But we didn't know exactly. I think the person from Kickstarter actually said that he thought around $10,000 would be a good goal for this project. But we weren't really sure that could be done. I started to do a lot of research for other visual novel projects to see how much they were asking for. And I saw that around 2,000 euros were a pretty common sum to ask for. But we thought that it was a little too little, because if we would do this campaign, it would take 1 whole month out of the production. So we would have to reschedule things, and we would have to put all our time into this Kickstarter campaign instead of doing the production. And it didn't seem worth it if we got too little money. So that's why we asked for the sum we did in the end, because we didn't want to ask for too much either, because we really wanted the campaign to succeed, because it doesn't feel good if it doesn't succeed. So in the end, we tried to come up with a sum that we thought that if we succeed in engaging all of our networks, we should be able to get this amount of money. We should be able to raise 50,000 Swedish crowns. But it was like a gut feeling, what we thought, and also based upon other projects, what they had got. So now we had decided to do it. We had decided to how much we should ask for, and now it was time to start planning this process. And as I said before, we had a very short amount of time to do this. We only had 2 weeks. So I started writing a document with everything that should be done. And I knew before that since I had done 2 campaigns before, I knew that when the campaign actually launches, you have very little time to think. Then it's just do. So if you need to think about something, for example, what you should write in updates, what you should write on social media, what images you want to post there, it's best to have made as much of that content before the campaign launches. We also had to check things for the rewards, decide on the rewards, and everything like that. And of course, all of that has to be done before the campaign launches. So on this list, to-do list, that is just like a rough schedule of everything. It's like check prices of the tarot cards, because I really wanted to make a real tarot deck and have as a reward in the campaign. It's starting shops for merchandise where we could order things that could be rewards in the campaign. It was making a demo and upload it to itch.io and Steam. I think we actually just uploaded it to Steam, but at this point in time, I thought we would make it for Steam as well. We didn't. Yeah, lots of things. And you can, if you can read Swedish, you can see that it says send the Kickstarter page for review, and I've set that to the 29th of October. That was a mistake, because when I actually clicked that button to send the page for review, it said it could take up to 3 days. And I did it the day before the Kickstarter was to be launched. It was approved in time, but it could have made the whole schedule. Yeah. made us have to reschedule the campaign. That would have been really hard. So to summarize, what to do before launching. It's like you will put a lot of time into the Kickstarter page, the copy, the images, the video for the Kickstarter, the FAQ, all the information that's going into the page, because that's where people will land and that's where they will read about the project. They have to understand. They have to feel that this is something I want to support. And of course, the rewards are important, the reward tiers. What should they get for what amount of money? It's kind of a hard thing to decide upon. Then we had a list of ideas for updates, because in the campaign you can write updates, and I knew it's important to be very active on that page and write at least 10 updates for the campaign. And it's good if they are not just today we got this. It's good if they have some content, because then you can market the updates as a content. And then there should be some kind of social media and marketing plan as well. How should we spread the word about this campaign? And I put the last one in there is mental preparation to cope with asking for money from more or less everyone, I don't know about you, but I really, really hate this kind of thing. But you have to do it if you're going to do a Kickstarter. And it actually involves sending emails and Facebook messages directly to people, asking them to give you money. So here are some of my drafts for those kinds of messages. I don't know how many I sent, but maybe 100 or something. I should have probably done more, but that was what I could do. And then even if you think you've planned everything, you've made content, you've made updates and everything, there will happen things that make you have to rethink a lot of stuff. And you will probably notice, just as we did, that you need to market the campaign even more than you thought. And for us, that included, because we had mainly thought about social media before, but for reasons we couldn't use that as much as we had hoped. So we had to look into other ways of marketing the Kickstarter campaign. And that included Steam forums, that included Reddit forums, Discord channels, Facebook groups, visual novel forums, and also contacting streamers. So that was something I hadn't really thought too much before the campaign started about. But when it started, I saw that it didn't, we couldn't market it as we had thought. So we had to do that kind of marketing. But at the same time, it's very hard to just jump into a forum and where people are active and have been for a long time and try to market your campaign there. Those kinds of communities can turn on you if you just go in there and try to sell something. So it has to be handled with a bit of caution and care, because otherwise it could backfire instead. So the best thing would be to be active on those kinds of community a couple of months before the campaign starts, so you know the community and know how you can talk about things there. So you don't just jump in there and try to get their money, because they won't really like that. Yeah, and why couldn't we use social media as I had planned in my plan for the campaign? Well, it was because of the content in Knife Sisters, of course. I was a bit naive when it came to those kinds of things, maybe because we are from Sweden and we're used to being able to talk about things like sex and those things without it being a very big deal. But it turned out to be a very big deal on social media platforms. And even if our updates and our images that we would post there didn't have any explicit content at all. It wasn't possible for us to buy any social media ads. And that made it a lot harder to spread the words about the campaign. Because since social media works as they do, it's hard to get new people to notice anything if you can't pay for social media ads. So in the end of the campaign, we were a bit desperate actually, because it wasn't really, we got up until like 50%. I think we were at 50% when there was 1 week left of the campaign. And we were very afraid that we wouldn't succeed. So here we had to like write to everyone again and say and talk about this, that we couldn't market it as we had hoped, and we had to ask a lot of people for help. But in the end, it actually succeeded. It was like 1 or 2 days left of the campaign when we got to the goal. And it was an amazing feeling, of course. So we got the tarot cards for the game and for the rewards for the backers. So this scene looked a lot better than it would have done with the rough sketches that were there before. We also got the proofreading of the scripts. Actually, we couldn't afford to proofread all of it because it costs a lot of money, but we proofread a lot of it, maybe 2/3, and the rest had to be as it was. So, what were our main takeaways from this process of doing a Kickstarter campaign for this game? Well, what we learned was that we were the ones getting the audience to Kickstarter. And probably if you do it, you will be the one getting the audience to Kickstarter. There aren't a lot of people just hanging around on Kickstarter wanting to support your game. Because there are tons and tons and tons of projects out there. So the audience you get to Kickstarter is the one that will support your game. And there are some projects that work better than others. I think that projects that are very easy to understand what you get when you support them, like a board game. You support the board game and you get the board game. That's kind of it's a bit easier, and that's also very premium content. If you have that kind of project, it might be easier to get to activate Kickstarter's own community. But if you're doing something that doesn't fit perfectly for their most active target groups, then you will have to drag the people to the platform. And if you can get help doing this, it's good, because the more people, the better, because then you can activate their networks as well. I was pretty much on my own because the other team members who worked on Knife Sisters didn't have time, or they didn't really feel like doing that kind of work, and that's okay, because it's not very. It's a hard thing to do, to write to people and ask for money, as I said before. So if you have someone who can help you doing it, that's good. You can use the campaign to try things out, and that was the best thing for us. It was the main takeaway for us. It was that when we did our Kickstarter campaign, we could try the marketing and see how it worked. You can try a whole project like that. I know there are visual novel producers that use Kickstarters to see if their ideas work. So they put the concept out on Kickstarter, and if they get enough money, they will do the project. Otherwise, they don't. I'm not sure I could use it that way, but it could actually be used that way, just to try if a concept worked or not. But for us, it was more like the marketing. We could see if the marketing worked. And for us, one thing we learned was that we couldn't market it the way we had thought. And that made us very aware of the problems we would face when we released the game. And I'm very, very thankful that we did the Kickstarter because of that. Because otherwise we would have gotten to know that when we released the game, and now we knew it before. That was the I've talked before about the research. You have to do research on similar projects and plan a lot in advance. But one thing I say that I missed out on was to research failed Kickstarter campaigns, because I only looked at those who succeeded and I tried to mimic what they did. But when I started to get a bit worried that we wouldn't succeed, then I started to look at failed Kickstarters and see what I could have learned from them. But then it was like we had already launched the campaign. It was very valuable to look at the failed Kickstarters and see what maybe why didn't they succeed? Did they ask for too much money, or what was the problem? So if you're going to research for similar projects, then look also at the failed Kickstarters. And then I think there are two ways of doing this, or you can combine them, but either you have a specific audience in mind and you know how to reach them, and then I think it's a bit easier. If your project has a perfect fit for a specific audience, then it will be easier to activate that audience for your project. For us, it was a bit hard because Knife Sisters is a visual novel, but it's definitely not a traditional visual novel. Actually, it doesn't suit the main audience for visual novels at all. So when we wrote about it in visual novel forums and the like, people were a bit like, this is a bit strange. So it wasn't a perfect fit to market it to that audience. But if you don't have a specific audience already, or a way to target them, then the only option left is to stand out a lot so that people want to support the project because it's very different or very stylish or very innovative. And then I think it's possible also to get a big reach, because then people want to talk about the project. Have you seen this? This is crazy. This is amazing. And then they will spread the word about it. So, and if you can do both, that's great. For us, it turned out to be the queer Twitter was probably our best channel for this game, because there is a lot of queer game developers and artists and people who are interested in this kind of project, and I think we got the most people from there. But the most people really supporting the campaign was from Sweden. So I think in the end, our network, our friends, etc., were the ones supporting them. And then this is like a given, but if you are going to have physical rewards, then use it with caution, because it can easily grow very big when you're supposed to ship all this and you're going to order from different kinds of sources and you're going to ship it all over the world. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money to do that. We got a young person who could work extra for us to just do this for us, so we didn't have to do this ourselves. But if I would do a Kickstarter campaign again, I'm not sure I would use any physical rewards at all. People like them, but it's also a lot of work involved, shipping. So, last but not least, would I do a Kickstarter campaign again? After 3 campaigns that I've been part of, all successful, thankfully, every time I've thought, never again, it's too hard. And I wrote in my calendar, I found this when I was working on this presentation. I'd written in my calendar, Kickstarter finally over, because it's so much work. But I'm not sure I wouldn't do it again. I might actually do it because it's such a good thing to be able to like test the marketing, do like a small release for the game in advance. And for us, that was the main thing. The money wasn't that big. We could have gotten money elsewhere maybe, but we couldn't have gotten the same effect. So for us, the main thing we got out of it was that it actually spread hard. And I've heard a lot of people saying afterwards that, yeah, I heard about it when you did your Kickstarter campaign. That was the marketing thing that worked best, especially considering that we couldn't buy any social media ads. So I might do it again, but not too. So that's everything for me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Bobbi. Oh my God, it was so fascinating to follow your journey for this Kickstarter. I actually picked up Knife Sisters. I think I found it through the Kotaku article that you presented, and I backed it back in 2019. It was super impressive with like everything you did for it. Yeah, I think we are just going to like thank you so much for coming here. Thank you everyone who are watching. We are like 2 minutes until we reach our end time. So yeah, I just want to like just say thank you.
Thank you. It was. It's also always very good to be able to like reflect on what you did and how you did it. It's good for yourself as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we have the links both to your Kickstarter for Knife Sisters, but also to the Steam page for Knife Sisters down in our description. So if you guys who are watching are interested, just go and check it out and buy a copy. It is super nice. I really agree on the wholesome part. I really like it in that kind of sense. So yeah, thank you so much, Bobbi. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching and will be watching this later on also. Hope you have a nice rest of this Thursday and weekend later on. Bye-bye.
Bye.